My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, thank you very much for agreeing to come on my show today and to talk more about prayer. This is something I grew up with as well, but then as I got older, life got uh, better of me. So I I think it's a sign. So I as a ritual, I would give a bit of introduction about my guest speaker today before we dive right into business. Hope that's fine with you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so hi everybody. We have Rich Lewis here. He is actually residing in America from the
Yes.
accent. Okay. So Rich Lewis here is an author, speaker, and coach who focuses on centering prayer as a means of inner transformation. He teaches centering prayer in both his local and virtual community and offers one on one coaching. His newest book, titled Sitting with God, A Journey to Your True Self Through Centering Prayer. He also publishes a weekly meditation, book reviews, and interviews on his site, Silence Teaches. Rich has been a daily practitioner of centering prayer since June 2014. Welcome, Rich.
Great. No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So, Rich, can you tell us first, how was your childhood like? What was it like growing up as Rich Lewis?
Um, I guess just in general, I grew up in a town called Warminster, Pennsylvania. So I guess I was born in New York City, but I don't remember that because I only lived there from I think 0 to 2. So that I don't remember. But then I definitely remember living in Warminster, Pennsylvania, which was a small town about 2 hours south of New York City, and
Okay.
it was it was a new neighborhood, so it was more rural, and there wasn't anything behind us. And then it quickly grew into a large neighborhood. So I remember it being, you know, a lot of land and a lot of building, and I loved I guess I loved living there. I had a lot of friends in the neighborhood because as the neighborhood grew, I began making friends with all the neighbors. And I'm 57, so I think about how my kids were raised now, how kids are now versus when I was, and there was no internet, there were really no cell phones, so we were we spent a lot of time outside playing and running in the woods and going to the creek and playing tag and
Yeah.
just we spent a lot of time outside. And times have drastically changed where I think kids maybe are spending more time inside, and they're playing games and they're on their phones and they're playing video games. So that much I remember. My kids laugh at me. I said, no, we had electricity, we had cars, but we didn't have all these gadgets that you now have. We didn't have that. So but we did have fun. We did other things or other types of things. Spent a lot more time outside. I think we were could a lot of times we could be outside. Obviously when we had school we had to come in, but during the summer we might go out, come back to eat, go back out. We were outside a lot.
And to add to that, I can't say I relate, but I'm in the transition because I'm a millennial. So I guess we were forced to connect. We were forced to connect face to face, and that's one of the. I guess every generation has its pros and cons. So yeah, I'd like to. You brought up a few good points just now in your whatever you mentioned just now. So how I guess I just want to go back to the origin of centering prayer. Right? Did your
Sure.
childhood um was it because of your upbringing that sort of form this centering prayer practice that you do? How did it come about?
I would say it probably formed it without me knowing it. So I didn't practice. I didn't find centering prayer until late 2013 in a book that
Uh-huh.
that I was reading called "Healing the Divide: Recovering Christianity's Mystic Roots." I found that book on Amazon when I was simply looking for a book to read in late 2013. But I think the idea of, and we'll talk about centering prayer, the idea of just sitting quietly with God, I think when I was raised, it probably was instilled within me without me realizing it because we were outside, we were with nature. So I remember even as a teenager, I liked being in the woods. I liked walking along the creek. I liked walking in nature on paths. I didn't mind being alone doing it, and but I did it with my sister as well and friends. But I liked being outside, and I liked nature, and I liked I liked the ocean, and I liked the woods, and I liked paths and streams. So it had a soothing and calming. As I look back at the time, maybe I wasn't thinking that, but as I think about it now, it just had a really soothing, calming impact on my life. And centering prayer is very similar. It's I guess God is in nature, but centering prayer is just sitting with God quietly. So I think being outside created a love for sitting with God that I didn't realize at the time.
Hmm. Wow. Yes. So, you there was this question that you said in your you mentioned in your profile. How can one find their true self? I guess all of these questions are gonna be interconnected. We're gonna go back to centering. We're gonna go back to God is in nature. Nature is God. And the $1 million question we have: who is your true self? So tell us more. Share with us your thoughts.
Sure, your true self, I think of it as is within you, waiting to be expressed. But on top of your true self. So I think, I don't think I'm God, but I think God is within me, and I think God is waiting to be expressed in really my outer actions in the world. And the fun part is it's a journey. So it's not like, oh, I've completed it. I'm now fully my true self. I think it's a journey of different things that I do in the outer world. But I think what sits on top of your true self are barriers to it, fear, lack of confidence, worry, anxiety, or thinking about what some people telling you you're too young to do that, or you're too old to do that, or you don't have the right skill set. So I think all of these things sit on top of your true self, and sometimes your true self doesn't come out. Um,
Hmm.
so centering prayer is a practice that I think helps remove barriers between you and God so that you can let your true self flourish. So I think the true self is in everybody waiting to come out and be expressed. And some people, it's deeply buried and they have to remove kind of the barriers between them and their true self.
How so? What about you? What was your journey of discovering your true self? Would you say you've found it, or would you say that you're on the way of finding it, or you haven't found it? So,
I would say I'm on the way, and I think it took me a long time. I wish I had found centering prayer earlier than about 10 years ago, but centering prayer has helped me find my true self. So, like some of the things I'm doing now, I never weren't even on my radar screen, and probably because I didn't have the confidence that I could do them, or I was fearful. So, for example, I have a since practicing centering prayer, I have a website, silenceteaches.com, that has a weekly meditation that goes off of it for people to read. And then I have a book that was published, and I do speaking, and I do podcasts, and I've been on since the book's launched. I've been on over 120 podcasts,
wow.
um, and I do some one-on-one coaching. So all of that was not even on the radar screen prior to centering prayer. And then I even moved. My wife and I moved from Pennsylvania to North Carolina about a year ago. And then after the move, I decided I needed a change, and I updated my LinkedIn profile, and I began interviewing, and I landed at a new, I think, better remote job. So all of these things are my true self, and I attribute it to a lot of it to centering prayer, where I'm letting go of who I am not and becoming who I am. But no, I think I'm just beginning the journey, and I'm excited. In 10 years, it'll be neat to look back to see, well, what else have I done? Um, what else have I done? It'll be kind of neat to look back at.
Yeah. Well, I I think that's very interesting. A lot of people these days, I think, including myself, 5 years ago, especially during COVID, I think that's where the reset button was very. Oh. in your face. And I myself experienced few things that had forced me to. I think the answer is always been within us rather than external to us. And life is happening for us, not to us, right? And so was there like a pivotal moment for you that made you want to like that made you go towards okay, centering prayer could be this is the path that I should take. Like I guess this it's a two-pronged question. One of it is what is the tool that everybody can use if there's any, and what are other ways, other tools that people can use to get to where they want to be or finding that true purpose in life.
Oh, so I'm sorry. So the first part was kind of how did I,
Oh, oh, sorry.
or make sure I.
Your pivotal moment that made you turn towards centering prayer, and made you think like, okay, this is the path that I'm supposed to take, and then the other side of it, like, how can one um you is there a tool for people maybe they haven't found, maybe it's not centering prayer, maybe something else that or just I don't know, just something that people in their daily life, simple things that they do that could help them be closer to their purpose and their true selves.
Sure. So I guess if I look back at when discovered centering prayer, before centering prayer, so I guess I began probably a year, 2, 3 years before I began practicing centering prayer. I know I was reading books by a gentleman by the name of Carl McColman, and he talked a lot about the power of silence and how transforming it was. So then I used to just sit in silence. And I remember being brutal because I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just sitting there and I would just set a timer for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So I think I was just on an exploration phase of what is God in the silence and who is this God? Does God love me? So I think I was just really in an exploration phase of who is God and where is God and how does silence play a factor in this? And then when I
Right.
discovered Amos Smith's book, as I mentioned, he talked about centering prayer in his book, and he talked about a silent practice that he had been doing for about 20 years called centering prayer. So that
Oh,
intrigued me. So I began continuing to read his book, and then I began trying the practice for myself. And I reached out to him on his website. We began a back and forth dialogue, and to this day, we're actually our friends. And he's the
wow.
one that helped. He's the one that encouraged me to write my book, and he kind of served as a really nice mentor. So I guess the pivotal point was that where I was seeking, I was exploring, and I discovered centering prayer made it easy for me. It was a practice that made it easy for me to sit in silence, and I haven't looked back. So for me, I guess the pivotal period was that I discovered a practice that would help me sit in silence, and it would help me go deeper into who is God and where is God.
Hmm.
And then in terms of tools, I suggest to people that there's many different practices. Centering prayer has worked for me, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for everybody. So I just encourage people to try to find, I'll call it a contemplative practice that works best for them. So it might be centering prayer, it might be some other form of meditation, it might be walking, it might be painting, it's just some type of practice that slows you down because when you slow down so some type of slowing down process of letting go of thoughts and then reflecting and going interior into yourself to explore who you are. Writing, journaling are also great exercises, and I do other type of practices. Centering prayer is my mainstay, but I do journaling, and I also do affirmations and read them, and I kind of give them to God and say, did and then tweak them if they don't seem to make sense. So I would just encourage people to find some type of practice or practices that slow them down and help them go within and reflect.
Mm. I I I just want to like discuss a little bit more on have more dialogue on the sitting still, right? Because today it's so difficult to be still and actually to be one. I don't even want to say be one with your thoughts because your thoughts are not you. If you could just observe it passing by and just let it flow, and then and you just sitting in silence, that's actually, how do I say, it's the act of that, it's you being close to God or whoever is your you believe in higher power is, right? And I don't know, what are your thoughts about the generation today? And it's, I mean, on one hand, technology is helping us, but on the other hand, if we don't take control of our own lives and just slow it down, like we making time to slow down or deliberately just pausing before running ahead, I don't know what will become of us. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, you mentioned you have kids, so how do they practice this? Do you bring them into this kind of practices, or how?
Sure. Well, actually, what I'll say, a couple years ago, and this is a little bit before COVID, I actually went when I lived in Pennsylvania. I went to Penn State University, had a local
Ah,
campus, and they
Pen
had
U.
pardon,
Was it Pen U? Is it Pen U? I see that
P
name.
or PSU. So
Right. Okay. Okay.
maybe
Okay.
you're
Oh,
thinking of
Pen U is
University of Pennsylvania,
University of Pennsylvania. Okay. Okay.
right?
Pennsylvania
And this is Pennsylvania State
State
University.
University. Ah. Okay. Okay.
That's okay.
Right.
They have a so Penn State University had a local campus near where I lived, and they had a Christian group, and I kind of reached out to them and asked if they would be interested in me coming in to talk to them about centering prayer. So they took me up on it. So the kind of with what you're saying, I was hearing that from the students. So the people, obviously they were 18, 19, 20-year-old
Yeah.
students, and there was about 30 of them or so that were sitting in this classroom while I was talking, and then after and then listening to them, and I could hear from some of them that that they need silence and they need something to get away from the drama of constantly looking at their phones and their
Mm.
iPads and the digital age that they were living in. So I was hearing that from them, that it they need to step away from it. It's too much there and it's too much in their face, which was very different than when I grew up. There was no, I didn't have a phone. I remember I had a phone in my, I went to University of Pittsburgh, and I would call my parents from the phone in my room. So
Landline.
there from a landline, which we
Yeah.
don't even use anymore. So I didn't have something in my hand at all times to look at, and I had to when I had to write a paper, I had to type it on a typewriter.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
which thank God that you don't have to do that anymore because you can easily fix your mistakes.
Oh
So no,
yeah.
I was definitely hearing it from the students that there's too much drama, and then even from my own son. My children are 16, 22, and 26 at this age, but my eldest son sometimes would step away from Facebook because there was too much drama, and everybody's putting everything out there, and then all of a sudden everybody's getting upset with each other, or someone's
Mm.
saying. So sometimes people put too much on Facebook and share their whole life and drama.
Yeah.
So no, I agree. I think younger people nowadays are. I think Facebook is great, and I love it because I use it to stay connected to people, stay connected to relatives that might live far away from me, and it's a nice way to keep connected. But you do have to then sometimes step away from it because some people put a ton of information out there, and then you can find yourself getting nervous and anxious and worried. And then I even will think about, well,
Oh
what am I
yeah.
going to put out? What am I going to put out? I'm going to put out there some stuff, but I'm not going to put out there what
Just
happened to me
because you're
today.
compelled to put out, because other
Yeah.
people are putting out their kind of stuff, right? Yeah. I totally understand. Well, thank you for sharing your thought, Rich. Okay, let's come back to the reason why did you write Sitting with God, a journey to your true self, true centering prayer.
That was Amos Smith's fault. No, I'm joking when I say that, but he's the one
Is he,
that
are you
nudged me to
connected
write.
to him via any of the
He
social media? Perhaps when I tag you, he'll be able to see.
I mean, as I mentioned, I discovered centering prayer in his book that I read in 2013 and found that this was a practice that really worked well for me and resonated well with me. And we began a friendship. And he was in the middle of writing his second book, and he said at the time he was a pastor, and he said, you have a lot to say on this topic, and I think you need to write a book. So he actually encouraged me to write the book. And at the time, I remember thinking this. I've never written anything more than 7 or 8 pages. How can I possibly write a book? So I kind of pushed back a little bit, and he just said, write down some single sentence statements, thoughts you have on centering prayer. So I took a week or so to do that, and I remember emailing him back. And then he said, there's the chapters of your book, go write. Well, I thought, well,
Oh,
it's
that
not
was
as
clever.
so I thought, well, it's not as simple as that, but I decided, you know what, I'll just write one I'll pick one, write a chapter, email it to him, and then he'll probably tell me, forget it, your writing's terrible, and that's just, move on, is what I was thinking. And then to my surprise, he came back and said, I really like this. There's something neat here and good. You need to continue. And then I realized, well, maybe I should. So I remember talking to my wife to say, what do you think of me writing a book? And she said, do it. So, and I didn't want to take time away from the family, so I actually wrote. So this was, I guess, in 2014. As I kind of wrote the book over a couple of years. I wrote it on Saturday, mostly wrote it on Saturday mornings at the local Starbucks, and I actually disciplined myself. And I could never do it now, but because I want to sleep on Saturday mornings, and I've kind of
Right.
shifted when I write. But I actually wrote the book. It's from like 6 to 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings. Most of the book got written that way at the local Starbucks. Um, but that's how it happened. It was Amos nudging me trying it, and then me realizing I think I actually can do this, and then I did.
Amazing. Because I actually I don't know when, but somehow I think I'm gonna write a book. So I don't know what book is that, but your process of just writing whatever thoughts you have first, and then Amos just giving you the beacon saying, okay, those are your chapters. Go ahead. I'm
And then
gonna
it's just
adopt that. Yeah, that's
And then at
actually
that point, it's just like 500 words. And then, so I'm in the midst of writing my second book now, and I kind of changed my process where I just try to write 500 to 1,000 words, and that's it. And now I'm kind of in the edit phase. I decided, okay, I think I have enough. Now I need to edit and just start looking back. But you just do it in chunks, and you look at your schedule, put it where it belongs, and just start. So I would even do 500 to 1,000 words, at it just 500 to 1,000 words at a time.
awesome, awesome. So, before we go to the next question, where can people get this book of yours? Online?
Sure. Well, they can come to my website, silenceteaches.com, and you'll see it on the on the website. And
Right.
then it's available at most online booksellers. So it's available at Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Target and a lot. You'll find it all over, and it's also available, and I
Audible.
guess in various. It is an audiobook as well, and it's available. On Amazon through various countries, and then I've noticed, various different online buyers in various countries. I'm seeing it pop up.
Fantastic. Great. Wishing you all the best for your second book.
Thank you.
Okay, so how does one begin a centering prayer practice?
Sure, sure. And should we? Are you all right if I quickly describe what
Yeah,
is centering prayer,
please,
and then
please
and
do.
then
Yeah.
we'll answer that question as well. So centering prayer has been around for about 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was started in the early 1970s by three Trappist monks, so three Catholic priests created centering prayer. One of them, Father William Meninger, was reading an old classic book called The Cloud of Unknowing, and as he read this book, and I'll get the century, it's either 11th or 12th century book, and I might be wrong, 11th, 12th, 13th century book, maybe even 14th century book, but still, and as he read it, kind of a method of silent, wordless prayer popped out of the pages at him, and he kind of shared this with the other two priests, and they began kind of refining the centering prayer practice, sharing it with other clergy, and then kind of more importantly, sharing it with people, with everyday people. And it was kind of their reaction. They saw transcendental meditation happening and other forms of meditation happening, and they wanted something for the Christian community. So it came about in the early 1970s, and actually then in about 10 years after centering prayer was created, an organization called the Contemplative Outreach was created in 1984, which is really the main centering prayer organization. And if you go to that website, you'll see all kinds of resources, and you'll see different groups that practice all over the world, not just in the United States. But so that's just a quick summary that centering prayer is about a 50-year practice, and they have a main organization that's kind of
That spirit.
the founders of centering prayer. But then you'll find a lot of centering prayer websites, such as mine and other people. And then centering prayer is the practice. The guidelines really are: you sit comfortably with your eyes closed, and then to begin your practice. So, and during centering prayer, we believe we're doing two things. We are meditating, but we believe we're fostering and deepening our relationship with God. So we believe we're opening to the presence and actions of God within us. We don't believe we're God, but we believe God is within us, and we're opening to God within us during this silent sit. So you sit comfortably with your eyes closed, and then to begin it, you just introduce interiorly what we call a sacred word. So it might be one or two syllables. It could be love, God, Jesus, a color, ocean. And that just signifies you're now opening to the presence and action of God within. And then as you're sitting there comfortably with your eyes closed, when you begin engaging your thoughts, and what I mean by that is when you begin thinking about what am I going to do after my sit? What errands am I going to do? What am I going to do tonight with my friend? You begin realizing you're now engaging your thoughts. You're not really sitting with God in the present moment. So
That's
that's
right.
when you reintroduce that sacred word to let go of your engaged thoughts and come back to God and the present moment. And then you let go of that word as well. So you use that word when needed, when you find that you're doing everything else but sitting with God. So you don't use it as a mantra. There are some practices that are mantras where you say it over and over again. In centering prayer, you just use it to let go of the engaged thoughts, and then you let go of the sacred word itself as well. And that's really all you do during the practices. It's a continuous return to the present moment where God is with the use of your sacred word. Sometimes you don't need your sacred word, you catch yourself. Other times you use your sacred word just to let go of your engaged thoughts. And you do that however long you're going to practice, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. But that's really how you do the practice. And then after, you might use a timer that goes off just to say, okay, I'm now done. And then maybe you might sit there for another minute or so just to kind of reacclimate yourself to the world before you get up and do whatever you're going to do. But that's essentially a little history of centering prayer and how you do the practice.
Wow, it's much like meditation. I mean, from how you're describing, it's just
Exactly.
there's another approach to it, like where you introduce a word to anchor you, but you, as you're anchoring, you're also letting it go, right? Because I don't want to use the term anchor. Anchor meaning you're holding on to it, but you let go, right? So, that's beautiful. Thank you, Rich.
And then
So
I can
how?
answer.
Yeah,
Were
yeah,
you
yes,
about to say how start a practice? Is that what you were
yeah,
gonna?
yeah. How do you?
Okay,
Yeah, that answered the question. So how often should one practice centric prayer?
sure. Well, and actually, I'll come back to how start. So I think for people, the idea of if this is completely brand new to people, the idea of sitting for 10, 15, 20 minutes could seem very daunting and
Yeah,
difficult. So
yeah.
I think the best way to start is, I would say, first, make a commitment to try it for 30 days. And I would suggest you do it first thing in the morning before you begin your day. And that's how I start each day. I start my day with my practice. But for someone brand new, commit to trying it for 30 days. Do it first thing in the morning before you do anything else, and just make it 1 to 5 minutes. And then after the 30-day period, see how you feel. And if you feel like this is a practice that resonates with you, you're comfortable with it, you like it, begin increasing the time from 5 to 10 minutes, and to maybe 15 or 20 minutes. So just try it for 30 days and try it for a couple minutes and see if the practice even resonates with you and how you feel about doing this after 30 days.
Okay. I think the art is just to try. Give it a try
Right,
first.
right.
And you're probably the first, I think, a week or a few days, you're just gonna be wondering why am I even here? But then but then as you continue doing it, you're gonna realize, oh, okay, I am I am trying to center right now. I guess the key is to just give it a try. Because if maybe 5 to 7 years ago, I would be that person who said, "I'll give it a try. I'll force." It's forcing is not really the way, but I'll force, and then if I really don't like it, I won't do it at all. I don't know. Maybe it's not at the time. It wasn't. I wasn't. How do I say it? I don't even really want to say I'm not meant to do it, but you just didn't have the heart to commit to it. Um, yeah. At the same time, consistent, but just let go and just do it. I think you'll come to your senses. Yeah. Yeah. I guess this is how I would frame it. Okay. Thank you, Rich.
Sure.
Yeah. So, how often should one practice centering prayer?
I practice twice a day. I guess each person is different. I would suggest at least once a day. And the reason why I say twice a day is even better is because, for example, my first sit is in the morning and it starts my day. And I'm fortunate that I can work from home, and not everybody, some people have to go into an office or go to a restaurant or wherever they
Yeah, or they
work,
have to drive
or they
and
have to
then,
drive somewhere. And
yeah.
and actually, pre-COVID, I was going into an office, but I guess I would say practice it before you begin your day. And then when I was actually driving into an office, I practiced at lunch, and I actually went into my car and just did it from the driver's seat. So I did a second sit, because the second sit it's like a reset button. So the first sit starts your day and sets you up, and then by the middle of the day, you're tired, or you're weary, or I'll
After
say the
you
interior.
just got off a meeting that
Right.
that you were
You,
arguing about with other people.
so you need a reset button. So kind of the second sit kind of resets you, refreshes you, regrounds you, and helps you finish the second half of the day perhaps as well as the first half of the day. So I would encourage people to try two sits, one to begin the day, and then the second sit at some point in the middle of the day to help you finish the day. But if that's not possible, then there's some people that like to practice it, in the evening,
Yeah.
after dinner, or some people like to do it before they go to bed. So I would encourage, up to two sits per day of, 10 to 20 minutes each time. And then after a while, it just becomes a natural part of your life. And like, I can't even imagine myself without my first sit in the morning. It's just that's how I start my day, and it's not. I don't feel like I have to do it. It's like I want to do it. It's
You
part of
want.
who I am and connects me to God. And I look forward to my sits. And as I said, I work from home, so I do a second sit, and it's usually anywhere from 12 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon is when I do my second sit.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think the key word there, I look forward to doing it.
Right. I do.
That's
I
when
really.
it's second nature already. Yeah.
And I make it a fun routine too. So I'm not just doing my sit. Like I mentioned I like affirmations. I'll like read them to God and then do my sit. And then after my sit, I'll read from a book. And the book could be any book I'm reading. It doesn't necessarily have to be a spiritual book. So I make the centering prayer time, if I have the time, kind of a nice routine where I'm saying something to God, doing my sit, and then reading for 5 or 10 minutes from a book that I'm reading, and then I get up from it and read. So you just make it a nice, fun routine.
Make it yours, right?
Right,
Unique to you.
exactly.
Thank you.
Sure,
So I think the beauty is this: what happens during centering prayer?
sure. And there's really a ton happening if you think about it, because you're letting go. So if you think about centering prayer, you're letting go. You're constantly letting go and coming back to God in the present moment, and then that letting go kind of follows you outside of your practice. So you learn to let go of what maybe the present moment doesn't require of you and hone in and focus on what it does. So like when I think about my work, I have a list, and in front of me is 20 items. Well, I learned to let go of the 18 that don't need
18.
to happen,
Yeah.
and the two that have to happen now. So one thing it clearly does, it helps me let go of what I don't need to do and focus on what I do. But the other thing about centering prayer is, if you think about it, when you sit in silence, you're letting go of thoughts, which include anxiety and worry. So you're letting go of emotions that you really don't have to hold on to. You're letting go of repressed thoughts sometimes that you didn't even know you have. And then also just sitting in silence, you're letting go of stress that your body's holding. So every time you sit and meditate, even just for that matter, meditation, centering prayer, whatever your practice is, you're letting go of all this stress that your body's holding and your emotions, mental health is holding, and you're kind of freeing yourself. You don't. I think we all, including myself, walk around in what we think of as our normal state, and that doesn't have to be normal. We don't have to carry all this emotional and physical stress with us. So it's healing. I guess I'll say it's really a healing practice where we're healing ourselves, and we're walking away from our sits kind of freer and lighter people.
Yeah.
So there's a
And
lot
the next,
happening in centering prayer. There's healing's happening, transforming's happening. We're connecting to our true self, as we talked about earlier in our conversation.
yeah. And I guess the next question kind of flows from that question, like what are the fruits of centering prayer?
Sure. And I think the neat thing is they're unique for each person that practices. So if I
Mm.
look at myself, since I've been practicing centering prayer, many of the fruits are, one, not that I didn't have an excitement for life, but I think I have an even greater an excitement for life in the present moment and what's going to happen today than I did before centering prayer. I have a lot more confidence in myself. I'm willing to try and do new things that I've never did before. I think I'm better at just listening to people and not worrying about what I'm going to say. I think I'm more relaxed, so there might be chaos around me, but I'm more relaxed and able to get done what needs to get done. Kind of going back to my list of 20 or 30 items at work that I need to do, I'm able to not get frantic and say, well, this is a big list, but it doesn't all have to happen today. So let's just focus on what has to happen today, and then I can feel good about that. So a lot of those types of fruits, just an inner calm and inner peace, despite maybe some outer chaos.
Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to ask you another question, like more of what I experienced myself. So it's like one on one end of the scale, you are trying to say let go and let God, right? But on the other side of the scale, you also want to be excited about what's going to happen, the possibilities in your life. But at the same time, you also don't want to get overexcited about it because there's always duality in life. And when you were talking, I just had this thought, like okay, personally for me, I have also began yoga as a form of my commitment, and also meditation, like 5 minutes after that yoga. And then before it's like, okay, I'm very excited because I'm doing something good for myself. But then I have, at the same time, I cannot help but think about, if I'm too excited, what if, again, the what if happens, like what if things don't turn my way, or what if I'm too excited, then something's gonna catch me off guard, and I have to, like, maybe I would lose my balance then. I don't know. Do you have that, those kind of thoughts, or how do you how do you reorient yourself if you ever experience those, I don't know, I wouldn't say, maybe it's imposter syndrome. No, not even. Something, there's doubt. Yeah, that doubt.
I mean, I guess maybe just centering prayer just kind of has helped me just to kind of accept the present moment as it is, because maybe and not judge it, because I may think this isn't good and this is not a good thing that's just happened, but tomorrow or a year from now I can look back on the same thing and realize that was the best thing that could have happened to me. Then I didn't think it was, but so I don't know if I'm answering your
Mm.
question, but I think we just accept life on its terms and as it is, and it was a tremendously valuable lesson. I guess you hear many people saying life, and you maybe even you said it, where life happens for us, not to us. So we're
Yeah.
just kind of judging a situation as being painful and terrible or wrong, when maybe it was exactly what we needed that day for us.
Now, yeah, that's a very good angle, because I was also talking to a friend just a couple of days back. We, again, on the same topic. Life is happening for us. Actually, we create our reality. Therefore, if you are excited, then the reality you're creating is gonna be exciting. But if it doesn't, but I guess, again, let go of the expectations of how it will come about, and if it doesn't present itself in the way that you pictured it to be, perhaps God or the universe has other plans, and it often sh- will be for your highest good if we see it that way, right?
No, I
Like,
would agree. I mean, I think of different things in my life, like the book. The idea of my book just came about. I wasn't looking for it. It kind of came to me, and Amos said, "You need to write a book." And then even the book writing process. I mean, I obviously I probably could have self-published it, but I guess I was trying to get it published through a traditional publisher, and that was a struggling process. So I kept telling myself, it will happen, and then there was a lot of ups and downs, and there was a publisher, I won't say their name, where they said they would publish it, and they ghosted me, and that got very discouraging. But I kept in my mind kept thinking, I have a book, it's going to get published, and I just kept being positive. And it was just funny how I found the Anamkara Books, who published my book. I found them on a Zoom call. I don't remember how this happened, but I joined a Zoom call, and the purpose of the Zoom call was to talk to other people, and to help each other. So I
oh,
landed on this Zoom call with about 10 people, and the purpose of it was just 10 people to talk and listen and help each other. Well, when it was my turn to talk, I just shared that I had a book. I was trying to get it published. Well, lo and behold, the editor of Anamkara Books was on the Zoom call and said, "Why don't we talk after?" So
wow.
we talked after, and I said, "I have a book. It's ready to go. I have a proposal that's written." I sent it to her. She sent it back in a week and said, "We'd like to publish your book." So I think things just kind of happen for a reason, where
Yes.
I just happened to be reading Amos Smith's book, beginning a dialogue, start centering prayer, and then all of a sudden I'm writing a book, and then I have my own website. I land on a Zoom call, and I connect with an editor, which I didn't had never even heard of Anam Cara Books. So things. So I think letting go of the outcome, coming back to you had mentioned that. So I think, yes, I think we have an end goal in mind, but kind of letting go of, well, how are we going to get there? And that
Yeah.
I've definitely noticed that seems to be playing out a lot in my life, where all of a sudden
Same, same.
I'm being connected. So if you let go of the outcome, but no, I want to publish a book, I don't know how it's going to happen, or I want to do something and keep
Yeah.
moving forward
Yes.
and let the path emerge. It definitely has happened in my life.
Let go and let God let the stars align for you. Let God align the stars for you. Wow, that's a good one. Okay, so Rich, what is your heart's greatest wish?
um, that's a very good question. Well, I guess if to help people discover their true self. So I think I think centering prayer or this type of practice can help people. I guess my heart's wish is that everybody could, through whatever practice or techniques or contemplative practices that they are comfortable with, could learn to let go of who they are not and become who they are, discover their true self, and then begin to take action on this person. And when they do, they're going to impact the world. So I think if we hide our true selves, we what's the right word for it? People don't get the benefit of your true self and the actions that it has in the real world. So if you don't let your true self out, people can't benefit from it. So I think that's my wish for everyone, is that they could kind of act and let their true self flourish, because the rest of the world will definitely benefit.
Thank you. So, is there anything that keeps you up at night, or do you sleep well?
Um, no, I'm a natural worrier, so sometimes
So
it's
you
just
still worry
I still
despite
worry,
the
but then I'll
this.
do practices such as centering prayer and let go. So no, I'm a natural worrier. I could go to bed and then I'm thinking, oh my God, all the things I know I have to get done
All the
tomorrow
18 stuff that I was supposed to
that
do, I didn't do.
or that I don't know how to do, or there's some things on
Oh
that list
yes,
that
yes.
I'm not
Something you
sure
just
how they're going to
don't
get
know how
done.
to. Yeah.
So I'm definitely work in progress, but this type of practice. So I'll just do a quick centering prayer sit, and that'll calm me down, and then I'll be like, knock internally, like, knock it off, Rich. This is go to bed. This is being ridiculous. Give it to God and go to bed.
And then start it again tomorrow morning. Yeah. Okay, last question for you, Rich. So, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
I think coming back to, let go of who you are not and become who you are.
Wow. Simple but deep. Well, I think that wraps up our interview today. It has been an insight for me, bits of bits of pieces from what we discussed just now. I have started myself, but maybe not the name. The term is not centering prayer, but it is a contemplative practice that I have been trying to instill daily, and I think the work that you're doing is amazing. And also you coming onto my platform and this also to be shared to the world. I hope more and more people would be listening. And even if they listen right now and then perhaps they come across some other podcast or even YouTube shorts that says the same thing, perhaps it will ring a bell and just start their own practice. It's a ripple. So thank you so much, Rich, for your time. And I will be tagging you when this episode airs. I have followed you on Instagram. And if yeah, for our listeners outside, those that are listening today, if they wanna reach out to you, because you mentioned you're doing one-on-one coaching as well, right? How can they do that? Maybe you could
Sure.
give them an introduction. Mm.
No, the best place to find me is just my website. Silenceteaches.com is my website. So I have a contact page there if someone just wants to email me a question if they have. But silenceteaches.com is where you can find me, and there is information on. And when they subscribe to my website, they'll get a free ebook on centering prayer. And
Ooh,
then on my
good.
on my website is my book if they want to further explore. If they want to invite me to talk, there's an invite me to speak page, and
Ah, okay.
if they are interested in coaching, there is a coaching page as well. But silenceteaches.com is the best place just to find me and what I'm doing.
Awesome. So people, they can also reach out to you if they would like to invite you to become a speaker virtually, or also
Yes,
face to face if they're in the US where you are.
right. No,
Awesome.
yes, because I definitely do. I do a lot of speaking. I've been invited to various groups via Zoom and join their group to talk to them.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. Okay, I'll definitely keep you in the radar. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Rich. And well, have a great rest of your day, and then we'll connect definitely again.
Sure. Thanks for
Thank
having me on. It was a whole lot of fun. We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.